We are continuing to journey through Surah, chapter 13. And I wanted to start off asking whoever is present right now to share anything you would like from the last session. Any comments, anything that stayed with you, or anything you remember from our last week's study. We were in verse 16.
The question I had is I'm stuck on that verse. It says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't change the condition of the people. But then the whole of the ayah, the beginning part, that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the angels take care of you, and in the end part of the verse is that He can punish whoever He wants. But this verse which changes the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't change the condition of the people till they change themselves. It's sandwiched between the two. So I cannot find the connection between those two. They seem a little bit, not connected to me, and it's the same verse in Surah. So I'm stuck on that verse, and I couldn't figure out last time. It wasn't last time; it was before that, I believe. So I wanted to ask you the question.
Could you
11 verse 13, 11.
verse 13?
The most famous verse of Surah.
I couldn't understand the question actually.
Can you hear me correct properly this time? Because last time I had a problem.
Yeah, it's actually similar.
Oh, is it? Then I better not ask any question.
I mean, I hear you okay.
له موقبات أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم له موقبات من بين يديه ومن خلفه. That word.
Okay, do you have the verse number?
Sorry?
Do you have the verse number?
This is verse number 13.
13, okay.
Actually, when we
يأخذون من أمر الله إن الله لا يغير ما بقومه حتى يغيروا ما بأنفسهم. إذا أراد الله بقومه سوءا فلا مرد له وما الله من دونه. I don't understand. I understand the middle, but I don't understand the connection of it with the other thought. The same.
Could someone repeat the comment? I still couldn't understand it, and I guess that at least the people who will listen to the hangout on the web maybe also have difficulties to understand.
Yeah. The question is, in one word.
Or maybe someone else than you. I mean, someone who understood what you're saying, because your voice is not so easy to understand.
Or is it? Yeah. I mean, in one word, there are three different thoughts. Doesn't seem connected to me. So I wanted to find out if there is a connection between the three thoughts in one word.
Actually, that was verse 14 of Surah Al-Ra'd. And if you go back to when we actually reflected on the ayah, that's exactly what we said. The way it has been not only translated, because the translation is based on some tafsir. So the way it has been rendered, let's say, or interpreted, it's difficult to see the relationship or the connection between even parts of the same ayah. And that's exactly what we discussed in that lecture. And so we went through it and we reconnected all of them. So if you go back to when we discussed Surah 14, if you go to our videos on YouTube, it will say which ayah is discussed in that video. I don't remember the exact time, if it was how many weeks ago it was, but that's exactly, you will find exactly the answer to the question. It was actually the whole session was really an answer to your question.
Okay. Yes.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I also remember that this was a while ago, maybe a month ago. But a very good question, and inshallah, if you revisit and if you still want to share, you're most welcome to share any other questions you might have. Is there anybody else who wants to share anything from last week's discussion?
I think it was August the 27th.
So Sister Asma's question?
Yeah, I think it was August 27th when we discussed that.
Last time we had teleconference and there was this interesting question whether we have to live in constant fear or not, which was actually really a great question. But it was teleconference.
Sister Yamina? Are you able to speak?
Yes.
Yeah, so I wanted to see if we can start the discussion and then we can chime in.
Inshallah. استغفر الله استغفر الله استغفر الله العظيم الكريم الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم وأتوب إليه سبحانه. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسولنا محمد وعلى أصحابه وأهله أجمعين. Welcome back to Always Receiving Noor's weekly classes on Surat Al-Ra'd. May we always be open to receiving the light of divine guidance in this surah, and may we live according to that guidance, inshallah. So,
Yamina, can you go closer to the microphone? I can really barely hear you.
Okay, inshallah.
Thank you.
So we're still at ayah 16 of Surah Al-Ra'd. Alhamdulillah, there's lots of barakah, and it's probably because it's directly related to the issue of shirk and therefore to the issue of tawheed, which is central to the Quranic teachings. And so I'd like to look at the implications of the second part of this ayah, where it says, أم جعلوا لله شركاء خلقوا كخلقه فتشابه الخلق عليهم قل الله خالق كل شيء. So that part when it says, or do they believe that there are partners to God that have created the like of what he creates, that they have created something that looks like what he has created, so that their creation, the creation of those shuraka, seems indistinguishable from Allah's creation. So this is this question, or there were questions answered before as well. These questions asked in this area are directly related to how we perceive the creation and the creator. And consequently, it's directly related to what tawheed and what shirk entail. What are their consequences? What are there and what are their consequences? And as I had mentioned last week, the majority view among Muslim scholars about creation has been that God creates directly out of nothing, as it is implied in many Quranic ayats, such as إنما قولنا لشيء إذا أردناه أن نقول له كن فيكون. Whenever we will anything to be, we, here is God speaking, we but say unto it our word, be, and it is. And there is also the other God saying, we say, he says, be, and it is, at the end of Surah Yasin. So actually, in two passages in the Quran, there are explicit references to creating out of nothing. Both of the cases are in Surah Maryam, and in both cases, the point is to emphasize that God's power is all-encompassing, all-comprehensive, that it encompasses everything. And the point there in those passages was that he can create what was once nothing, or let me say it this way, he who can create what was once nothing can also create a child in a barren old woman, and in another instance, in the second instance, he can raise the dead at the day of judgment. Whoever can create from nothing can raise the dead at the day of judgment. In the first passage, which is the 8th and 9th ayat of Surah Maryam, which is the 19th chapter in the Quran, Zakaria alayhi salam exclaimed, "O my sustainer, O my Rabb, how can I have a son when my wife has always been barren and I have been utterly infirm through old age?" And the angel answered, "Thus it is. Your Rabb says, this is easy for me, even as I have created thee, like you, but singular, anta, khalaqtuka, aforetime out of nothing." It means it is easy for me, even as I have created you before when you were nothing. وَقَدْ خَلَقْتُكَ مِنْ قَبْلُ وَلَمْ تَكُ شَيْئًا. And the second passage, again in Surah Maryam, is ayat 67 and 68. And there it says, "But does human not bear in mind that we have created him aforetime out of nothing? And so, by your Rabb, we shall most certainly bring them forth, meaning on the day of judgment." and it says أَوَلَا يَذْكُرُ الْإِنسَانُ أَنَّا خَلَقْنَاهُ مِنْ قَبْلُ وَلَمْ يَكُ شَيْئًا. And it's the same expression. Literally, human being was nothing, and we brought him into being. We created him. And to Zakaria alayhi salam, he says, this is easy for me to create old wife. Just as you were nothing and I created you. So the first passage here refutes what's known as natural causation. One cause creates the effect. Because it seems that the woman cannot give birth to a child because she is old and barren. That's how we usually reason. But in fact, what it's telling us here, she is actually barren, or we call her barren, we see her as barren, because so far God has not willed her to bear a child. And when and if God wills her to bear a child, even in her old age, then she's not barren anymore, and she does bear a child. And Zakaria alayhi salam has a child, actually, Yahya, John alayhi salam. So this also means that when a woman bears a child, she does so by God's permission. Remember when we talked about a few ayat before, we mentioned the miracles, and the miracles were all happening bi-idhnillah, by God's permission. So, and often we can see it happens that like a perfectly healthy woman may never bear a child, and that's God's will. I mean, there is no need to look for a physical cause for it. She doesn't have to be old or something is wrong with her. That's why she doesn't have a child, because at the end of the day, it is divine will. So it is understood from these Quranic passages, from this ayat, that so-called causes, which are actually themselves created, they are things themselves, the mother and the child, for instance, the seed and the seed water and light and a shoot coming out of it, they are themselves created, and they have therefore no power to produce the effects attributed to them. And this is what we are reminded again and again in the Quran, when in Surah Al-Nahl it says, وَالَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ لَا يَخْلُقُونَ شَيْئًا وَهُمْ يُخْلُقُونَ. Those whom they invoke instead of God, they cannot create, they do not create anything, because they themselves are being created. They are being created right now. How can they create anything? They cannot create themselves. The mother cannot even sustain her own life. How can she be making or creating or having any role in the creation of her child? And
Yamina,
yes.
Clarification question here. What part of the verse is pointing to this? That natural causes.
Oh, you mean in the verse? Yeah, thank you. So we go back to our. Thank you, Isra, because this helps us reconnect again to the text that we are actually reflecting on today. And here, God is inviting us. This question in the ayah, in ayah 16 of Surah Al-Ra'd, is an invitation to reflect. He's saying to us, do they believe? Like, it's nice, it's rahmah. It doesn't accuse us. It doesn't say, do you believe? It says, do they believe? But it's an invitation to me, who is reading this, to stop and think about it. That there are partners to God that have created something, and that now it seems to you indistinguishable from His. Like, you don't know if it's their creation or His creation. Like, where wasn't they? And then it says, say, God is the creator of all things. There is only one creator. He creates every single thing. Okay, but then we go back in our daily life, but it seems like things are making other things. It seems like some things are causing other effects, they are having results. So this area is an invitation for us to reflect on what seems to be going on in the world when we are not consciously questioning what's going on, when we take things for granted. So
this is very, very interesting, because it is asking us to, it's before our eyes, but until the Quran invites us, we think, okay, yeah, I mean, this needs this and that needs that. And what did God do? Well, it must have started the thing in the very beginning, but you know, things are happening on their own. That's kind of the kind of mindless state that we're in. And the Quran is saying, do they really believe that there are side by side other divine powers that have created like that of what He creates? That for that this act of creation seems similar to it, appears to be similar. So are you confused? Are you seeing other creators around and you're saying which one? This one or that one? Mm-hmm. And my initial response to that is to say, okay, I don't ever say there are other creators, but the way I guess I look at the world, it looks like things are happening. And then the Quran, by just waking you up and saying, really, do you really see other things creating? That's kind of an invitation to say, do you really see these things that we call as natural causes? You know, this causes naturally. This is a natural cause, maybe water or sunshine or some other thing. Do you really think that it has divinity? It has creative power on its own? Do you really think it is creating? Mm-hmm. And that's like that catches me, you know, wakes me up, because I would say no. Of course, I don't think there are other creators around, but it's not just that. Look, do you see action that you can ascribe to someone other than the creator of everything?
Yeah,
and just look. I mean, it's an invitation. It's not like I used to read this verse as kind of only like giving command. Don't think like that. You're going to get in trouble. So, but now when you said it as an invitation, that made me think, no, this is not just saying this is it, and if you think otherwise you're in trouble. It's not that kind of a warning. It's more like, really, go check it out again. Do you really see anything that has the capacity to be the creator?
Or to produce, because we don't say creator, but we think we're safe when say it's producing, it's having a result. And what we discussed last week and the week before was that when our perception is tested is when sometimes we think that the absence of that thing puts us in a, you know, it brings anxiety in us. We're anxious when something is missing because we think that without it we won't have the result that we associate with it. And that means that in our mind, in our perception, we never question the relationship with the so-called cause, with its so-called effect and result. We think that what we call the cause is actually producing the effect. And so because we see them happening always together, we take it for granted that one is making the other, and when one is missing, we get anxious, what's going to happen? And we never stop and actually reflect the meaning of God is the creator of everything. What does it mean? It's saying to us here, one of the implications is, do you think that they can produce anything? That now you, sometimes you can't be sure. Sure here is not only intellectual, but my heart is not at peace. When I feel that something is missing, because that's it, I think I am in trouble, because my heart is not at peace that God is in control of everything. He is the only creator. And so this, there's some ayat, there is a passage in Surah Al-A'raf, a beautiful passage when it says أَيُشْرِكُونَ مَا لَا يَخْلُقُ شَيْئًا وَهُمْ يُخْلَقُونَ وَلَا يَسْتَطِيعُونَ لَهُمْ نَصْرًا وَلَا أَنفُسَهُمْ يَنْصُرُونَ وَإِن تَدْعُوهُمْ إِلَى الْهُدَى لَيَتَّبِعُوكُمْ سَوَاء عَلَيْكُمْ دَعَوْتُمُوهُمْ أَمْ أَنْتُمْ صَامِتُونَ. It says, will they then ascribe to God partners that cannot create anything since they themselves are being created? And neither these things, these partners, are neither able to give them help nor to help themselves. And if you pray to them for guidance, they don't respond to you. As far as you are concerned, it is all one whether you invoke them or keep silent, because they don't hear you, they can't. Verily, all those whom you invoke beside God are but created beings like you, like yourselves. Invoke them then and let them answer your prayers if what you claim is true. And of course, this is a challenge, it's an invitation, and believe me, when we don't stop and reflect on the meaning of this ayat, when we don't take them at heart and actually stop and see where is it in my life that I am doing this. If you do stop and reflect, you will see that we do not seldom, very often, we may find ourselves praying, invoking help from situations, from things, from people, from conditions. And meaning that we are not directly, our heart is not directly looking to God, not directly asking for help from Him alone. We have that fear. What if this thing doesn't happen? As if what we're expecting to happen is going to provide me with what I imagine is what I need. And even if it's true that what I need is that, who said that it has to come in a certain way? When God is powerful over all things. And we often, if we stop and think about it, how many times we were surprised in very delightful ways that Allah brought us the answer in unexpected way. من حيث لا يحتسب, it says in the Quran. In unexpected ways, God answers our prayers. But sometimes we're so stuck in what we witnessed in the past without questioning, because what we witnessed in the past was supposed to be an ayah to rububiyah, and so we were supposed to get closer to our Rabb, but we get closer to those situations. We're stuck in the situation. It's not an ayah for us. It's not a sign. We think this thing has to happen in order for this result, for me to have this result. So going back to the reasoning behind God creates everything, it may go like this. I want to clarify this so that we clear. Since God is the creator of everything, and since He has power over everything, على كل شيء قدير, then nothing other than God can have the power to create any being or thing or result. And since God is in no need of helpers or partners, He acts directly without any intermediaries, and therefore secondary causes, or what we call causes, have no real agency. For instance, water is not the source of life, although it seems like without water things die, but water is not the source of life. How does this reasoning sound to you? This is an invitation to the audience. How does it sound to you?
So if I may repeat, we're asking the statement that if God is great with everything, therefore nothing else can be creator.
Yeah.
What do we make of this kind of reasoning?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it is. There is nothing. There is nothing. How would you say? False, untrue. Obviously, it's true because it's based on the conclusion in the ayah that we just read.
Give us clues yet, Sister Yamina.
Sorry?
Maybe you don't give us clues yet.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'm saying is this what we are supposed to end up with? Is this what we understand from this ayah when it says, have they, is the creation, do you think that God, or do they believe that there are partners to God that have created anything and that creation seems so similar to God's? And at the end it says God is, what was the say God is the creator of everything. So is this what we make out of it? Like when we say God is the creator of everything, does it mean that, okay, God is the creator of everything, he has power over everything, therefore nothing has the power to create, nothing is the creator, he must be the creator of everything?
Is this what the verse is saying?
Is this what the verse is saying?
Okay, let's open the floor for any comments, any questions at this point.
And I'm saying from the beginning that this, what I just said, this statement is, of course, it's true because it's based on the conclusion of the Quran. However, is this what we are invited to conclude? Or let me say it in another way: if I truly reflect on this area, take it and live with it for a few weeks at least, and really reflect on it. And if it says, look around, did they create anything? I have to go around in my own life and see if everything other than in anything around me, any created thing, is creating anything else. How does it feel? How does it seem to me? How do I perceive it? What do I feel about it? If I go and reflect in this way, performing the ayah, not only reading it and closing the mushaf and saying, okay, I understood what it says. It says God is the creator of everything, he's powerful over everything, therefore nothing else can create. If I go and actually perform and live and listen to the ayah, what does it say in my daily life? How does it enlighten my life? How does it transform me? Will I conclude, okay, God is the creator of everything, and therefore everything must be created by him, therefore there is no, causes can't create everything, everything is directly created through divine power?
Let's see what, I mean, in the audience, what do you make of Sister Yamina's question? And we're open to any kind of response here. It could be that you can, if you feel the question is not, you're not able to pose the question, that's also a comment. Whatever you make of the question or its answer from your perspective, just please share with us.
I mean, Yamina, I think that what this verse strikes me is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that whatever ayahs are present in the whole universe, there is no parallel, that Allah is the only creator. So how dare you not pray to him? I mean, it's a logical deduction that if you don't find anything which has not been created by other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then why do you not yield to the tawheed, to the message? This is what I understand from it.
Yeah, this is true. What you said is true. Is it the only thing? Is it the end or the beginning of the journey? Is it the only thing we're supposed to learn from here, from this? Because that was the conclusion But there are two questions before that conclusion that God creates everything. That's only the conclusion.
Maybe he's asking for the proof or a challenge, for this reasoning that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is asking everybody to think and come up with an answer. And obviously there is no answer, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, then why don't you pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instead of, including other partners. It's a challenge also, that's what I'm saying.
I guess I would say, like, sometimes if somebody gets sick and if they take a medication, you would think that the first thing logically that would come to your mind is the medication actually cured you. And so, with that type of understanding, it would be very hard to not attribute like deity qualities to the object, which is the medicine.
So you're saying, how do we reconcile?
Right.
It almost comes very close to what the verses ask, right? Like, do you see anything else creating? And then I agree with how that parts of us, those things, giving healing, things are, healing.
I think the bottom line would be that he's the awalul akhir. No matter where you see, far, near, whatever ayah you look at, you will never find anybody else except the one creator.
Okay, so that's probably what Isra was pointing to, that one part of us, like logically, intellectually, we understand what it means and we accept it, and it makes sense. However, in our daily life, in our heart, our emotions, in our interaction with the world, then what Fariha mentioned comes into play. Although we know at a certain level that yes, God is the creator of everything, at the same time, we're so attached to physical causes themselves. So personally, I would say that to say that God is the creator of everything, to understand that intellectually, because it's the conclusion, and in our journey, it is the beginning of the journey rather than the end. It's going to be the thing that we use. That conclusion will give us an istiqamah, it will give us a direction, and we will know if we're following the right direction or not. Whenever I ask myself at the end of the day, I verify the state, the hell I find myself in with the conclusion to find my direction. In the Quran, we are taught to reason from the ayat in creation. In this ayah, it's saying, go and look at what those things have created. For instance, you take medication, you feel in a certain way. You water the plant, it grows. You stop watering it, it dries and dies. So it says, go and look at creation. Have they created anything that seems similar to God's creation, that you are now like confused and you can't live with the reality that there is only one creator? And so it's what the Quran is doing in this ayah. It's sending us back to the ayat in creation. The ayat in creation is everything, all created beings and things and events. And it's inviting us to look at them as ayat. Apparently they are indicating that everything is created by God, but to me it seems like they are doing it. So I need to go and confirm the conclusion asserted in the Quran. I can't just repeat it and claim it. It will be just taqleed, just imitation. And this is what we have been emphasizing in Always Receiving Nur classes. So accordingly, what we do is we first observe, we go out, as the Quran told us in this ayah, go and look at what these things are creating. Are they really creating something that is confusing you because it seems so similar to what God is creating? So I go out, and what we do is we observe things and events and phenomena, and then we realize how they are actually ayat, which means they are signs. They are bearing some meaning beyond themselves. They are pointing to something. They are telling us something. And so we ask questions to learn. We ask, the moment we ask, we say, remember in our teleconference, these are when we're open to the possibility that beings in the world are letters, that they have a meaning, even if I don't know the alphabet yet, even if I don't know how to read and write yet. But if I at least agree, accept that there is a possibility that they have a meaning, then I start asking questions. And the Quran teaches us to ask questions. And then, so to learn, in order to learn what these ayat in creation actually signify, what do they indicate? For instance, if we look at water, because we considered water previously, because the ayat in this Surah Al-Ra'd were referring to water. So we look at water, it's lifeless, it has no knowledge, no power. If we agree on this, we carry on. So how could it give life to living beings, live beings? Or does it, can it give life? The moment I question it, I start seeing, the world starts looking in a different light. My perception changes. Because before I question, I'm not even aware. I'm not consciously claiming that water is giving life to anything. But by default, by not claiming otherwise, I am interacting with water as though it were giving life. My heart is attached to water as though it were the source of life. So the moment I ask that question, then I realize that water is lifeless. And the way it's interconnected with living beings is the sign. It is the ayah that shows that lifeless water is itself being employed in the giving of water. In the giving of life. Life is being given to beings, to live beings, through lifeless water. So it doesn't make water into an obstacle to rububiyyah, but on the contrary, it becomes transparent. It shows rububiyyah. It reflects the life of the giver of life. It reflects the rububiyyah of the Rabb, of those beings. And as such, it indicates a giver of life.
Sister Yamina, really nicely fits to verse 16 that we are looking at here in Surah 13, because the verse is inviting us to that kind of questioning. Can what you take as protector other than God, or instead of God, do they have in their power to even benefit themselves? So, like, does water, if I say water gives life, but then does water even have life itself? Does it even benefit itself? And then the next part in the book is, when the blind and the seeing be deemed equal. And again, the blindness here is a general term for not seeing, not knowing, being ignorant. And then water isn't
Yes.
like that. It
Yes.
is ignorant.
Yes.
It's not. It doesn't know really what it is giving life to, how it's going inside the plant or body and giving life. So that blind term here, think about it. What you think as really creating, does it really know what's creating? Does it even see what it's creating? Does it really have the awareness to create? And then after that, thinking that, look again, are you really seeing creations of other beings and getting confused? No, can these things be really created by something other than the creator of everything? So the verse is giving us all these clues to question, right?
Especially when this verse is read in the light of other verses in the Quran, where it's explicitly, like in the passage I just mentioned from Surat Al-A'raf, when it says they can't create anything because they are themselves created. It also says, do they have hands with which to grab? Do they have this? Do they have that? Like all these things you think are so powerful. We don't say they are powerful, but we attribute huge things to them. I mean, water enters every single living organism known, whether plant or animal or insect or human. How can this water act in every single organism, or even in earth and things, in non-living organic organisms? And it acts absolutely without any mistake in all of them. Does it know all the laws of chemistry and all the laws of physics and everything? And even if it knew, does it have the power to act accordingly? Does it have the power to subjugate all these other things going on there so that they all help it, or at least they are all working at its command, or at least helping it and cooperating with it, and all working in harmony? Like, if we really stop and think about what we're assuming when we're, it's incredible. It's just, it doesn't make sense. And so the Quran is inviting us to stop and reflect on all this, because otherwise it seems like we are seeing, like those who believe in God, they believe in the unseen, and those who believe in causes, they believe in the seen physical world. But it is not true. They are believing in something that they're not seeing. They are claiming, interpreting what they are seeing in a way that doesn't make sense at all the moment you question it.
The other, Dr. Yamina, is this. In the current example, like these days, you know, with the technology, especially biologically, they say they have cloned, you know, the sheep or this and that. They have created life. And actually, they have not created life. They have recycled stem cells, and which has already been created. So this could be an example, current example, you know, that, you know, nothing is created except by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The things that we think we have created, actually Allah's creation. We just recycle things, and you know.
It's like when Ibrahim alayhi salam says to Nimrod, like when he says, I can also deal life and death. Then he says, okay, then God brings the sun from the east, then you bring it from the west. He's not even asking him to create something from nothing. He's just saying, okay, because when they are creating all these things that they claim they're creating, they are using the already existing laws of being and of creation. So he's saying actually to him, just change one law. Don't create, I'm not asking you to create anything. Just change one law. And then if you really have the power to do anything.
Let the water boil.
At 0 degree, instead of freezing, let it boil, since you are the one who have the last word. Change the rule then. We say, I make water boil. Yeah, you're just using the law that's already there. That's sunnatullah. That's the way things are created. Actually, however, I was going to say rather than actually. However, this is not how we are taught to answer. Like, this is sunnatullah. No. We are taught to look at the creation or things. Let's say we don't know yet that it is a creation on purpose. We look at it. It is itself telling us, it is itself functioning as signs to his rububiyyah. If we look at things, the way they interact together, the way they are interconnected, they are going to take us back to our Rabb. That is what everything is an ayah in creation means. And that's what this ayah in Surah Al-Ra'd. And actually not only this ayah, all the ayahs that we've been reading so far have been always sending us back to the creation. Yes?
The best one is in Surah Tur, number 35, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, were they created of nothing, or were they themselves the creators?
Yes.
Or did they create the heavens and the earth? Nay, they have no firm belief. This is of the land. أَمْ خَلَقُوا مِنْ غَيْرِ شَيْءٍ أَمْ هُمْ
خَالِقُونَ.
And then أَمْ خَلَقُوا السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ بَلْ لَا يُوقِنُونَ.
And also, it also asks in different places about all the things that we do in our life, and says, are you the creators? Or are we the creators? أَنْتُمْ تَخْلُقُونَهُ أَمْ نَحْنُ الْخَالِقُونَ. It repeats these questions as well. So they're all questions and invitations. It's amazing. Like the Quran is really nur. It is really light. It enlightens our life. And so here,
Can I just add it?
Sure.
With the example, the Asma gave, that they're cloning, we can put it in this verse as well. As if verse 16 here is giving us a formula. So, like, let's say I'm a scientist and I say we created a human being. Like, we cloned and we created a new human being. Then the question would be, okay, so if I am claiming to be the creator, in addition to God, so I'm almost like a partner, I'm co-creator, I'm creating something. Okay, can I bring benefit or avert harm from myself? Can I, as a scientist, can I add to my life? Can I make myself, avert death from myself, or avert accident, or, so many things that I have no control of? How can I claim to give up life to somebody else? I can't control my own life. Another question is, can the blind and the seeing be deemed equal? Am I blind? Yes, in the sense that as a scientist we make all kinds of tests and try to observe things, but still we really don't quite know. Even when we study so hard and observe everything, how Allah has created in the lab, we observe it and then try to make a similar experiment. Even then, we are ignorant of how is this happening and how is this. And then sometimes we would intentionally do something and it backfires because we actually are ignorant of the implications of what we're doing, or even how we are doing it.
We just find it. They say, finding. We just stumble upon it. If we were the one creating it, why should we spend years in a lab looking for it? We should just say, be and it is. If I am looking for it, it's already there, but I am the one who doesn't know it. I'm trying to find it. So I can't be the one who is creating it. It was already out there. Someone else in another place in the world could have found it before me, but I'm not even aware of it. That's why sometimes I say, who is the first, this one or that one? Who discovered this the first? Yeah, thank you.
Another example for me is many years ago, I had heard a celebrity say she's thankful to her mother for her beauty. I guess she looks like her mom or something, but so that stayed with me, because if you put the same test in this verse again, like your mom gave you your beauty, really? Like, was she even aware of what she was doing when you were in her womb? Was she even aware of what was happening? Sometimes
Or of her own beauty. Has the mother even?
Her mom is the one who can give
Where
beauty.
did she get her own beauty from?
And how can she lose her beauty, right? I mean, as the mother gets older,
yeah, she can preserve it.
If she's the giver of beauty, how can she lose it? So it's very clear that, you know, that beginning of the verse that says they can bring benefit to themselves, let alone to you. Like if I say my mom gave this beauty to me, like she can't even, you know, give herself benefit. Or avert, you know, she loses it, or she can lose it any second, not just by old age.
Yes.
You know, she can have an accident. So all of these are like helpful tips that the Quran is giving to double check. Like if we are tempted to think that something has power on its own, just give it another thought and, you know, ask these questions. Can these things that I think are influential on their own, without me, they are little gods on their own? Those things that I'm tempted, or part of me is tempted to think like that, just ask these questions. Can these things, these partners, so-called partners, can they give benefit and harm to even themselves? Do they even know what's going on, or are they, how can you stay ignorant and knowledgeable? For this task to happen, you need immense knowledge. And how can these blind beings be making it? For a child to have its particular face, or any face, you need immense knowledge. And the mother is clueless. She doesn't even know how the baby looks like until it comes out of her. So
and this is not only guidance, it's Furqan, it's guidance, but it's also light and it's healing. Because can you imagine if we were, if our well-being was bound to things that can't even help themselves, things that can end anytime, beauty that is so fleeting, so transient, that is so impermanent, things that not only beauty here, everything. We would live in fear of losing anything, anytime, and we would never have that peace of mind, that peace of heart. Would never feel safe in the world. We would always feel alien, and always feel like what's going to happen, anything can happen anytime, which is the truth. However, when everything becomes an ayah to our Rabb, to His infinite knowledge, to His infinite beauty, He is the source, He is the giver of beauty, the giver of knowledge, the giver of power, the giver of life, then, oh, it's such a relief. It's like, oh, suddenly I have a point of support, something to lean on, something to grab on. I have a host. I'm the guest here on Earth. Nothing is happening randomly, and it's healing because everything is coming from everything is impermanent, but everything is pointing to permanence. Alhamdulillah. And it's the same here with the example of the water. So the moment we ask that question, as the Quran teaches us, then we see that it's itself, by being lifeless, by being blind, because it has no power and no knowledge, it becomes, that makes it, and the way it interconnects with every living being we can possibly think about, that becomes a sign, an ayah, showing that everything is happening through the command of a giver of life. And as we're told in the Quran, it says, and God sends down water from the skies, giving life thereby to the earth after it had been lifeless. Giving life, he's the one who sends the water, he's the one who uses that water to give life to the earth after it was. In this, behold, there is an ayah for people who listen. It says, إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَةٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَسْمَعُونَ. In another ayah it says, it is he who brings forth the living out of the dead. And also we told it is he who makes from water every living being. The famous وَجَعَلْنَا مِنَ الْمَاءِ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ حَيٍّ. So the ayah actually starts with a question, the ayah in Surat Al-Ra'd, is ayah 16, which is an invitation for us to reflect over the fact that life is, for instance, in this case, life is connected to lifeless water, for instance.
Yamina, there's another point I just wanted to mention. Yes. That especially in maths and physics, we never invent anything. We always discover things. I mean, the rules have already made by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we just discover them. We do not invent anything. And there's the difference between discovering and inventing things. Invent is something that you're doing out of, but basically it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who is the one who's directing us to this discovery, depending on how much we work hard and do research in any field. That's how. So man takes the credit, but it is actually Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who's giving us the capability and everything. So we are discovering, not inventing things.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Here at this point, I want to emphasize the approach here. This approach is very, very important. The way the Quran teaches us is how to look at things.
Is there anyone who wants to share anything else?
Okay, so what I want to emphasize here is that this approach of the Quran is very, very important. Always going back to creation, realizing that everything is an ayah, and being an ayah means the way they function, the way they are, takes us back to the what we are told in the Quran, and so we confirm the Quran at the same time. So primarily what the Quran teaches us is how to look at things as they are, which is ayat. Ayat, bearing, which means things are bearing meanings from the realm of the unseen. They are coming from somewhere, and they are bearing the mark of that realm of the unseen that they come from. And as they are signs, means they indicate realities beyond the seen. And this is a perspective that is absolutely transformational. It transforms our world so that it becomes not only meaningful, but full of light, the light of the beautiful names of God, the light of Rububiyyah. Being abd becomes a reality. We become abd. We live our ubudiyyah and we are in awe of Rububiyyah. And our heart is full of praise and gratitude to our Rabb rather than things themselves. Things themselves become something that we read. They are signs, they are language, they are speech. And they speak about the divine names. We're not stuck in them as shapes. Remember when we take the example of the letters? They are meaningful letters and we read them. We understand them. So this is very, very, I think, very important. And this transformation of perspective is very significant. Sorry, because also, as we mentioned earlier, and as I always like to mention, because to me it's so important. It opens the door, the way to eternity within transience and impermanence, and the way to infinity within limitless. This is the way to paradise in this world. It opens a window onto the eternal divine names from within the created and mortal, the sign, like the sign beings, let's say, that we interact with day in, day out. And this is the perspective of Tawheed. Everything points to one and only one. And so the so-called natural causes, they are themselves being created, we said before, and they do not possess the power to create, is something that we witness. It's not something that we just claim because the Quran said so, because we're Muslim, therefore God creates everything, therefore they can't be creating. But in my daily life, I'm stuck in them. No, I actually come to the terms that yes, actually nothing has the power to create, not even a fly, as we are told in the Quran. إن الذين تدعون من دون الله لن يخلقوا ذبابا ولو اجتمعوا له. It says those being whom you invoke instead of God because you think that they can do something, that they have some power, they produce something, they can help you. They cannot create even a fly, even if they were to join all their forces to that end. Everything in the world will come together to make a fly. They can't. Actually, they can't even make a single atom, even a single particle. They themselves are being created. How can they create anything? They have neither the power nor the knowledge or anything. And actually, the ayah carries on. It's nice, as if the fly takes any blood from them, they can never get it back. And so this was the creation out of nothing. There were other scholars, and especially the so-called Muslim philosophers. They said yes, but there are passages in the Quran that seem to support creation out of matter. Like God does not always create out of nothing. Sometimes He creates out of matter. And one of the examples is we made out of matter every living thing.
Out of water.
Sorry, out of water. Did I say out of matter? Well, I suppose it's a kind of matter. The Quran says, yeah, وَجَعَلْنَا مِنَ الْمَاءِ. We made out of matter every living being. Will they not then believe? However, in this area, it does not mean that water can create anything, since, as we just mentioned, water itself is created, and since water itself is lifeless and it cannot sustain itself, as Isra reminded us again and again. So let alone create or give life to anything. So a famous example provided by Imam al-Ghazali to answer this view and refute it, because the majority refuted this view. And Imam al-Ghazali, rahimahullah, he said, he gave the example of fire, the miracle of fire not burning Ibrahim alayhi salam. And so those who opposed his interpretation, they thought that fire had the power to burn. They said if it had not the power to burn, it wouldn't be fire. We call it fire because it burns. And so this means that they considered burning to be a necessary quality of fire. It's not only a contingent quality that comes and goes, like youth is a contingent quality of a young person, because after years, that person is not young anymore, or let's say maybe more than youth, because youth is relative. Let's say beauty. Or life is contingent, because one day I'll die. It's a contingent. It's not necessary to me, because if life was necessary to me, I could never die. They said if it did not burn, it wouldn't be fire. Therefore, they considered burning to be a necessary quality of fire. Why? They said because we see it burning. You see, again, what we discussed before. We see water entering the plant and it flourishes and it grows. And so what was assumed here is that it is possible to perceive facts out there without interpretation, or as though we could relate facts objectively without any interpretation, as they are, as it is. This is the fact as it is. Fire burns. This is the fact as it is. I never put my interpretation in it. This is how still many people, that's why they think that science is objective, because they think that there is no interference, no perception, no interpretation. The scientist is only relating the fact as it is. But this is not true, especially when the person is unaware of her underlying perception. That perception that is always coloring her interpretation. Then she believes that she's being objective or neutral, but actually our perception is always like a glass. We always perceive things through our own glasses. Even when we are measuring, we're measuring things in the lab according to a setting, and that setting is based on a certain question. I want to measure something. Maybe I'm missing something else. What I'm measuring has some other qualities that I'm not aware of, and therefore I'm not even measuring them or asking question about them. It's like the elephant and blind people. Everyone touches a part of the elephant and describes the elephant accordingly. And so as a result, some Muslim scholars interpreted the ayah, the opponents of Imam al-Ghazali and the majority, they interpreted the ayah describing the miracle of fire not burning Ibrahim alayhi salam, which says, "We said, O fire, be cool and a means of safety for Ibrahim." They used it as an argument against Imam al-Ghazali in favor of the causal approach, of the ismi approach, the horizontal approach, that fire is actually burning. And al-Ghazali and others saying, no, it burns bi-idhnillah. And so they said, if fire were not necessarily a burning agent, if it were not necessarily burning, then God would not have commanded it to be cool. It looks like very reasonable, logical, right? They said, fire must be a burning agent necessarily. That's why God had to interfere and say, stop, do not burn, be cool on Ibrahim. However, the verse actually indicates that fire acts under a command. It acts according to the divine command. And therefore, what does it mean? It does not act according to its own wishes or to its own nature. It doesn't have a necessary nature that it has to burn. If it was necessary to it to burn, it could never not burn. This ayah only means that fire acts under a command. It also means that if fire can cease to burn at the command of God, then the burning itself must be tied to the divine command. You see how they thought that we can think, not they only thought, we can think that we are reporting a fact without interpretation, but there is always an interpretation going on. They said, fire burns. If God says to fire, stop burning, be cool, it means that fire itself burns. That's why Allah is saying, stop burning. What is underlying this perception of the world? The fire and God are completely independent of each other. They are all completely separate. So God is only interfering from time to time for the miracle to happen. But for the fire to burn, oh, he is not. The fire burns on its own. It reflects how those people saw themselves as completely, or as partially at least, independent and separate from God, and we saw that was the Ismi approach. And then from time to time we need some divine intervention. But in the Harfi approach, no. If it stops burning at the divine command, this means that it burns also at the divine command. And it means that fire burns because it is commanded to do so. This is how it is created, to burn. It does not itself burn, because therefore it did not burn Ibrahim, because it was commanded not to burn it. And so, saying, what does it mean to say that fire is the recipient of the divine command? I will repeat this because it's very important. The claim is that fire itself burns, but this power to burn is given to it by God. And my question is it true? This is what we learned from the Quran to question. Is it true? If fire itself burned, then how is it possible to deduce that God gave it the power to burn? This God gave it the power to burn, I read it even in, these are modern scholars who are still perpetuating that understanding of causes having power. And they're saying it's okay because it burns, but God gave it the power to burn. So like we're not denying God. So what they're doing is they're adding God in the equation, but without evidence. This is just an assumption. It's like we see that fire burns. At the same time, we believe that God is all-powerful, so God must have given fire the power to burn. And I say, excuse me, but this is pure speculation based on unquestioned and unconfirmed premises. You're saying, I see that fire burns. You never questioned this. You say, we believe that God is all-powerful, and never confirmed this. Otherwise, you wouldn't be saying, adding one on top of the other without ever questioning it. Since I am a scientist, fire burns. Since I'm a Muslim, I will say, okay, God is all-powerful, he must have given it the power. I mean, how did you even know that God is all-powerful? If fire burns, water gives life, I do this, all causes have the power to create themselves. Why do I even need a creator? How did you know that this creator is all-powerful over everything? Because in that world, in that perception, things are not ayat, are seen as acting for themselves in themselves. If burning were necessary to fire, then fire would have no need for anything to burn. And therefore, inserting God at that point would be purely speculative. Fire wouldn't be an aya, a sign to God's power. It would be an obstacle to God's power, or a sharik, a partner in God's power. And that's what we called in one of our monthly teleconferences superficial tawheed. It leaves the doors open to shirk because it's not based on observation and witnessing, on shahada, witnessing the evidences for tawheed in creation. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. I witness because I see it, I observe that there is no deity, that none except God. That water can't give life to anything except God, except the giver of life. So according to what we've learned so far from the Quranic teachings, fire, like everything else, is an ayah. As an ayah, it indicates God, that God is the creator of everything. So we want to confirm this statement, and therefore we look at fire and the process of burning to find out how does fire burns. We talked about how last week. And so we conclude that only the creator of everything has the control or can have the control over the process of burning, because the process of burning is not simple at all. If you stop and reflect, it's a reaction that involves not only the burned material before and after the burning, for instance, cotton, and then it burned, now there are ashes. This is the example given by Imam al-Ghazali, by the way. So there is the cotton, after it's burned there are ashes, but there is also oxygens. There are the laws according to which the cotton and the other materials burn. So burning, like any other event, does not happen, cannot happen in isolation from the rest of the universe. It is part of the whole. The whole is inseparable, and so is the burning part of the whole. And all events are interrelated. And so for one event to occur, for burning to occur, for cotton to burn and become ashes, the whole universe has to be there in the first place. And this means that for a cause to produce an effect, however small it is, whether it's a fly or something even smaller, it has to be able to produce the whole universe. Because that effect can only take place within and together with the whole universe. It cannot be separated from the rest. And so in order for to take place, for cotton to burn and become ashes, lots of conditions are needed. And in order for fire to have the power to burn, in order to say that fire itself is burning the cotton, then we would have to also say that it has the power and the knowledge to control all the conditions involved in the process of burning. And that is very, very far from being evident. So when we look at things like in this way, as the Quran teaches us, as ayat, when we look at the burning process as a fire, as an ayah, we conclude that fire is either acting under the command of someone who possesses all-comprehensive, encompassing power knowledge of all the conditions needed for burning to take place, or fire itself possesses that huge power and knowledge, which is, of course, nonsense.
I didn't understand like this part. Why is it not possible, or what is the difference between these two? Allah commands fire to burn, or you didn't say quality, but you said power. Fire does have the power. Allah gave powers to the fire to burn. Instead of that, let's say Allah gave the quality. So if Allah said to fire, be like this under these circumstances, you know, you said like in order to have a burn process, you need multiple things, like not multiple, like a lot of things, like the whole universe needs to be involved. So why is it not the same? I mean, if Allah is if it is working under Allah's command, and Allah is saying like be like this under these circumstances, so it's kind of like saying, I mean, this will be your quality, and then Allah give the quality to that thing. And of course, not only to fire, maybe He also gave like He said like okay, under these circumstances, oxygen should do that. You know, and what else, like, you know, other things, whatever involved in that process, you be like that, you be like that. So I mean, just saying that Allah give this quality to these like methods or items, whatever is involved. I mean, it's kind of like I feel like it's just kind of like saying they work under command. Like if Allah doesn't give the quality to them, or I mean, we can say like these may be like the same things, like because. Allah says be like this, and then that means that became his quality for that particular moment.
The debate was about direct creation. Imam al-Ghazali's, let's say Imam Ghazali, it's not only him, many scholars said that God creates directly. He does not need anything to create something. He does not need water to give life. He creates life together with water. So some said, no, God does not create directly. Let's say I'll take the example of water because water is clearly lifeless. Fire is a little bit something more intangible. So they said, no, we see that water gives life to living beings, or for instance, to living beings, to a seed. In order to grow into a live plant, it needs water. So we see that water is giving life to the seed. However, they said, what's the big deal about this? The others said, this is shirk if you say water gives life to the seed. They said, no, because God gave it the power to give life. Okay, so let me look at this equation. If I look at the world and see water giving life and I never question it, and I think that water gives life to seeds, let's say, I think that fire burns burns the cotton, and then I say, but I believe in God, therefore I believe that God gave the power to give life to water. Does it make sense to you? Will I personally, where did you say, where did you know that God had power first? Where did you know that God gave this power to give life to the fire, the power to burn to fire, or the power to give life to water? These are all pure speculations. The moment I accept that water itself gives life to the seed, that's it, full stop. There is no way for me to have access to the world of the unseen. There is no way for me to have access to the giver of life, because I already surrendered, I already assumed, I already accepted that water itself gives life. And then I am adding ad hoc, God gave it the power to give life. Where did I get God from? Let's say I feel that there must be a creator. How did I know that it gives power? How does it give power to water? What I see is that water is giving life. This is what they say. Because the debate was around fire, they said fire wouldn't be called fire if it did not burn. So necessarily, fire has the quality to burn. For instance, water wouldn't be water if it did not satisfy my thirst. We wouldn't call it water, they said. Therefore, necessarily, water has to take your thirst. If water takes my thirst, I don't say Alhamdulillah, then I have to say Alhamdulillah to the water, lilma. And then there is no way that things are signs. Then my worldview, my perception of the world is no different from anyone who denies God, or at least deny in this statement. There is acceptance of uluhiyya, of God as ilah, but not as Rabb. This is a complete denial of rububiyyah. Rububiyyah means that in every single thing I see the activity, the divine activity. I see his qualities. But here I see only the quality of the water, the quality of the fire. If fire is necessarily burning, it means it needs nothing. In itself it burns. It needs nothing outside itself to make it stop it from burning. And of course, under this assumption, they think this is they are stating the fact as they see it, but actually they are assuming, as I just mentioned, burning is not happening only between the cotton and the fire. There are so many other things, like for instance, oxygen has to be going on, all the laws of chemistry, physics, and lots of things has to be going on. Actually, all the world as it is has to be there in the first place. So it's not only happening, fire has the power to burn. In order to have the power to burn, it has to have the knowledge of all the burning process and all the things it is connected to it, and it has to have the power to control all of them. It has to, that burning process is something that involves so many things. So when you're saying this, you're actually giving the power, the divine power and divine knowledge to that fire. They think I'm giving him a little power. And then they say that power, God gave it to him. That's exactly what shirk is. Shirk is not denying God, is seeing that there is something next to God, having power next to God. And that, it says it's shirk because it's going to, if fire can burn, itself can burn without the command of God, then that means that there are things that are outside the power of God. Because what they said is, they interpreted this ayah as, when God says, "Oh fire, be cool," they said, it means that fire burns all the time. That's why Allah had to command it to be cool. Does it make sense?
But they were not fire got that burn command from God, like in the beginning, like God gave equality.
No. The burning is for them. The burning is not from God. The burning has never been, is not connected to God. The burning is, the fire itself is doing the burning, and they said, what's the big deal? Why do you say this is shirk? Why? Because the majority of Muslim scholars was against this view of the philosophers. They said this is shirk. Even Imam Ghazali says, if you claim this, you're not even a believer, because he said, if you say that fire itself can burn, then you're imagining that fire has the power to create something outside the command of God.
But that was my understanding. Like, I thought they think like this, like everything is given a quality, like water to take your thirst and fire to burn. Everything is given a quality. God said, like, do this. And then at some point, God changed, or I shouldn't maybe say change, but then tells to the fire do this. So they were just thinking like this fire is by itself like burning. It wasn't a quality given by God. Like they were thinking that it was not a quality given by God, because
the way you say it, look, the way it is said is very important. That's why I said this point is extremely important, because we're talking about them, but this is something we do ourselves. Otherwise, we're not just debating what they said. They are saying we see that fire burns, and fire can't be fire if it doesn't burn. But this is someone making tafsir even, saying it's okay to say fire burns because, okay, God gave it the power to burn. Where did you know? Who told you that God gave it the power to burn? God doesn't say it in the Quran. You don't see it in the creation. Where do you come with such an assumption? This is pure speculation. What the Quran tells us, and you can only see how nonsense this is when we compare it to the way of the Quran. The way of the Quran is, look at fire. Can it burn by itself? We look at fire, we look at the burning process, we see, oh, this involves oxygen, it involves so many things, it doesn't happen haphazardly, lots of power and lots of knowledge and lots of things are going on. And so to say fire burns, oh, we say it burns bi-idhnillah, not it was given the power to burn. It burns bi-idhnillah means the way it burns itself is a sign that to its Rabb. The burning process is a sign to Rububiyyah, to God's knowledge, to God's power. And so the majority of, instead of saying, since God said, be cool to fire, it means that God, fire on its own, it will burn. That's why God had to say to it, stop. The others said no. It means that if it stops by God's command, at God's command, it means it burns also at God's command. It burns in itself, it burns, but the power has been given to it by God. It's like, I have, my life is mine, but it was given to me by God. Now it's mine, my life. Is it true? It's not true. Right now, if I look at the way at my life, I will understand that the giver of life, here and now, the giver of life is someone else. The way my life is tied to the world through breathing, through eating, through drinking, shows how it is so impermanent, that it is right now, it is sustained. Rabb is the sustainer, qayyumiyya. It cannot stand on its own. It's not like life was given to me, I am alive until it's taken back from me. No, every time I need to be sustained. There, it's like water is acting on its own. From time to time, Allah intervenes. Or fire burns, and then when it came to Ibrahim, it said stop. But it says like, why are you bothered by this? Fire burns, but it's okay because God gave it the power to burn. It means like God gave me life, and now I'm living myself. So where does the Rabb comes? Where does my ubudiyya comes? How do I understand that I'm a abd if life is mine and it was given to me and finished? Then I will have a hard time to remember. And it would be only a claim, a taqlid. It would be only a superficial tawheed, not real tawheed. Right now, I am living my life myself. From time to time, if I'm ill, if something happens, then I need God's help. No, the other said no. God is right now, your life, He's sustaining it. He is the only Hayy. And this one also, the process of burning itself is like a mirror. It's like saying there is no mirror. What you see in the mirror is real. It has life on its own. The other said, no, it's only a mirror. If Allah takes His life, you won't see life in the mirror.
Yamina, there's another point I heard from some other Pakistani scholar, this Tafsir, Dr. Shah Ahmed, and it was a very important point he mentioned. He said this is in connection with the word kun. What happens, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created certain principles like the fire will always burn, and so then it has to be stopped or violated or done against the physical laws. He has to say kun. Like, for example, all the human beings of Adam alayhi salam children were born by both the parents. And now in case of Isa alayhi salam, he was born only through his mother. So he had to intervene and pull and say kun. So whenever he has made rules and he wants to break it himself, he's the only one who can break it. He has to say kun. And for that matter, in Surah Yasin also, you see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in verse 80, He is the same who produces for you fire out of a green tree. When behold, so whatever he wants to do, he is capable of doing it, producing fire from green trees instead of dry trees. So whenever he breaks the rules that he has made himself, he has to say kun. I don't know if this is true or not. Allahu Alam. I'm just sharing you because I heard this myself.
I think at this point, what I want to emphasize is that everything, fire, the burning process, water, the coming into life, all beings, all events, everything else is an ayah. They are all ayah to what? To rububiyyah. The moment I say fire burns, that's it. I blocked the way to the unseen. Its fire is not a sign anymore. It's not an ayah anymore. I am thinking exactly like the one who completely denies God, because I'm, at least in my world, there is no rububiyyah. Allah is not Rabb. He is only the creator at the beginning, and that's exactly what the Muslim philosophers, that's how they understood God. The creator at the beginning, and now things are created, they're carrying on themselves.
I got your point. You mean that he's also the sustainer and mudabbir also?
He's the sustainer, yeah. Right now, I cannot take a breath without, or let's say, my breathing right now is a sign to his rububiyyah. The fire burning right now in front of me, if I don't take it for granted and reflect and contemplate on how it is, I will be amazed at how big a sign it is to rububiyyah. That's what it means that it is acting at the command of its Rabb. Not that it was given the power. This is a speculation. I've never seen God giving it power. And I have no way to see it because, according to that claim, fire burns itself in itself. It's completely ismi. It's completely between the fire and the cotton and the ashes. It's completely horizontal. So where did you even get God, and how did you get that he gave the power? Because they were Muslims, because the other says, if you claim this, you are making shirk. What kind of God do you believe on? Then they inserted that assumption at the end. Gave them the power, and they thought that would save them. But that doesn't save the day. Just by saying it gave the power, it doesn't save anything, because you're saying that it burns itself. You never questioned the burning process. You never saw it as the area that it is. So
yes, I get your point. It's very, very deep. That he's mudabbir al-umur. That means he's not only created, he's a sustainer, and he's managing, and he's under control now.
Yeah. So thank you, Isra, for bringing this up, because really, really, this is our problem. This is related to the point that Fariha pointed out about medicine, for instance. When we take medicine and we have this illusion that it's from it. Whereas if we look at medicine as an area, it will take us to the healer. Yeah, I think this is very, very important.
Can we say like this, Yarna, then we can't say like Allah gives its power, but from what you told, that's my understanding. We can observe some things going on, like there's a burning process, or like there is like kind of growing process of a plant or something. We look at something going on, but whenever we see this, whenever some plant is growing, it's always water is there. There are maybe other things, but always water is there, just for one particular example. Then we have to say like water is employed in this process. It's kind of like a mirror because there's like something going on, and for me to appreciate that, what's going on there, it's kind of a visible thing there, acting as an ayah. It always shows up to remind me about the unseen, because if there was a life-giving process and there was no mirror, I wouldn't be able to appreciate that. But when I look at the water, which is always like employed there, that's just for me to remember that this process going on is being created by an unseen, water acts like kind of like ayah, like pointer to the creator, and any other process like burning or other things like death and things like that. Whenever we see like always something is being employed there, like that's for us to think whatever process is going on here, it's like pointing out to something else.
Yeah, and it's not only that I have to say that, the process is speaking, because subhanallah, lifeless water, lifeless and blind, and like it has no power, no knowledge, nothing palpable, and it is employed in the giving of life to all living beings. Subhanallah, how compassionate. He didn't make it, Allah didn't make it difficult for us to find him and see his rububiyyah in action everywhere. So as we, when we talked about superficial tawheed and genuine tawheed is not only tawheed of uluhiyyah, but also tawheed of rububiyyah, which means tawheed of all the names. When we say La ilaha illallah, it means La khaliqa illallah, La rabba illallah, La alima illallah, La rahmana illallah. It applies to all the names, not only to one God being the creator, and the others are, we give all the other qualities to things themselves. That's how we see it first. When we are mindless, when we don't ask questions, that's how it seems. It seems really like fire is burning. It seems really like water is making things grow and alive. But the moment this ayah, especially this ayah in Surah Ar-Ra'd here, it is inviting us to go out and actually say, is it true? Is it really? Does it seem to you that they are doing something like God is doing it? And when you go and ask the questions, and you are, the moment we ask about, is fire really burning this? Then you realize that the process of burning is so it involves so many things that it points to its Rabb. It shows its Rabb. And water being lifeless shows its Rabb. And interacting with all these living things, they all together show their Rabb. So that way of like camouflaging and assuming and speculating is not the way of the Quran, and trying to reconciliate by force. And the God that comes out of there is a God that intervenes from time to time, a God that created everything in the beginning. But right now, their perception and the perception of the non-believer or the mushrik are all the same. Something is wrong here. And that's why the ayat are so important, and that's why in one of our teleconferences we read all those ayats in the Quran that says when the mushriks come to entering hell, what they first say, their first regret is, oh, we wish we had like taken the signs, the ayats seriously. We had not dismissed, but when you don't take something, sorry? Neglected, thank you. We should not have neglected the ayat. Can you imagine? This is the thing that they will regret. because that's the, and why is it possible for us to neglect the ayat? It's because we forget that everything is impermanent. That's what Isra was reminding us again and again, that they have nothing, they cannot help themselves, because they themselves need help. They themselves are being created. They themselves, fire cannot sustain itself. How can it have the power to burn? Do you know what the power to burn, the quality to burn requires? They never thought about it. The quality to burn requires that you know everything, that you have interaction with oxygen, you know all the laws of chemistry and physics and everything. But when you are mindless, you don't question that. You say, you don't realize that everything is impermanent. It cannot sustain itself. How can it burn? How can water give life? How can water take my thirst? It cannot itself sustain itself. The moment I drink it, it's not the same anymore. It cannot even help itself. It can against me. I can do whatever I want with it. So realizing that things themselves not only are created, it says يخلقون. It doesn't say خلقوا. It says يخلقون, they are being created here and now all the time. It's the progressive that the Quran is using. Things are being created. They are being sustained. They are being, my life right now is being sustained. I cannot keep it. Someone can say, with the same reasoning, then life is my necessary quality. It's not. I know very well that it's not. Only the mindless can claim that. And so the way that everything is transient is what makes them clear ayats, and the way that they are interacted with each other, and the way that the lifeless is being employed in the giving of life makes it a clear signs to the giver of life, to Al-Hayy Al-Qayyum, who sustains everything. So subhanallah, this ayah is just so beautiful. And I mean, it shows us how to read the Quran, and the Quran itself is telling us how to read the ayat, and the ayat are, if we actually perform the ayah, which is really consider the creation. And so I really go out and think and reflect and look around me and listen to the creation and ayat. In accordance to what? In accordance to the guidance of the Quranic ayah. And then, inshallah, I can confirm that the message of this Quranic ayah is al-haq. Sadaqallahu al-azim. I say, yes, truly God said the truth. Truly this is haq. And truly these things outside are signs to God's Asma al-Husna, to his beautiful attributes. They are not claiming that the burning fire is not saying that I am the one who burns. It's saying it's from my Rabb. Can you see? Only He can burn things with me. It's all part. The burning process is the ayah. For instance, the food is not the ayah in itself. Food is only food because I have hunger. It's together, the eating, the hunger, together with the food, together with the eating. The interaction is the ayah. If I imagine the food sitting there and saying it's like water, the food is sitting there, and when it enters my body, it brings me this and that, as if food had an existence and a power on its own. Astaghfirullah. So this, from the ayat in creation to the divine names, through to Rububiyyah, from creation to the Rabb, is what we are taught in the Quran again and again. So we don't just claim we're Muslims, the ayah said this, therefore God creates everything. But then in our daily life, we interact with the world as though we were not believers, as though things, they had the power to act and create and have results and change our life and have an effect on their own. And that's why it says, إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَةٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَسْمَعُونَ. So these are ayat to people who listen. And so that's why we need to reflect and listen. Listen around us. Listen to the Quran and listen to the ayat it is pointing to out there in the world. Inshallah. Let's reflect on these. These are very, very, I feel very, very important things. Inshallah, it will change and transform our lives, and we will truly live our ubudiyah and truly appreciate rububiyyah, inshallah, in this world before the next. Allahumma inna nahmaduka wa nasta'inuka wa nastaghfiruka wa nastahdik wa nathni alayka al-khayra kullahu nashkuruka wa la nakfuruk. Allahumma inni ashhadu anna هذا كتابك المنزل من عندك على رسولك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وكلامك الناطق على لسان نبيك جعلته هاديا منك إلى خلقك وحبلا متصلا فيما بينك وبين عبادك. اللهم إني نشرت عهدك وكتابك. اللهم فاجعل نظري فيه عبادة وقراءتي فيه فكرا وفكري فيه اعتبارا. آمين آمين يا أرحم الراحمين يا أكرم الأكرمين يا ذا الجلال والإكرام والمن والعطاء والفضل والإحسان. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إنا كنا من الظالمين. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. ربنا اغفر لنا ولإخواننا الذين سبقونا بالإيمان ولا تجعل في قلوبنا غلا للذين آمنوا. ربنا إنك رؤوف رحيم. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل محمد. آمين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Thank you.
Yamina. And thank you everyone for joining us tonight. And thank you to every one of you who asked a question or made a comment. It's really enriched the discussion.